Hello, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Today, we're going to pick up where we left off last time in our talk about how beliefs determine behavior. To recap, in part one, I told you about a former student we called Marcos, a funny, bright kid with loads of potential. He truly believed that he wasn't meant for success, and that limiting belief that he was a lost cause and destined for failure shaped his behavior in the classroom and in life. Now, before we move ahead in today's episode, here's the rest of the story. Through his seventh and eighth grade years and all through high school, Marcos connected with mentors and developed a support system who saw through the barriers of his limiting beliefs. They consistently spoke life and truth into him. Over time, and it did take time, he began to challenge that internal script. A new way of thinking emerged and started to settle in, and Marcos flipped from clown to contributor in the classroom. He more consistently stayed out of trouble and started passing classes, all because changing his beliefs made room for new attitudes. Eventually, Marcos became the first person in his immediate family to graduate from high school. Marcos didn't wake up one day and just magically believe he was destined for greatness. As I said, it took time and it took trust. Through consistent mentoring, honest conversations, and experiences that began to challenge his assumptions, Marcos started to think differently. He dared to believe differently. He began to think, what if I'm not a lost cause? And what if I do have value, even purpose? Nope, Marcos did not go to Harvard Law, as he liked to sarcastically joke sometimes. But he did complete a vocational program at his local community college. While there, he earned his associate's degree and a certificate that opened the door to an apprenticeship as an electrician. Today, Marcos is a licensed journeyman electrician and the foreman of his own crew in a commercial construction company. He's happily married with two children, a boy and a girl, and he owns his own home. So, did Marcos change? The reality is, Marcos grew. He didn't become someone different, but he is becoming someone he was always capable of being, once his beliefs caught up with his value and purpose. Welcome back to Mr. Martinez's Mindset Messages. I'm Mr. Martinez, and today we're wrapping up our two-part look at the B in the ABC framework, Belief Determines Behavior. Last time, we explored what beliefs are, how they work, and where they come from. Today, we're diving in specifically to explore how beliefs change and how to help students like Marcos. So, how did Marcos make the change? Let's unpack the process. Last time we were together, we concluded with 5 reasons someone might want to change their beliefs. Here they are again for a quick review. The key takeaway from these 5 reasons is the first step in changing a belief is becoming aware the belief is there. Psychologist Nathaniel Branden said, the first step to change is awareness. The second step is acceptance. Cognitive behavioral therapy emphasizes identifying and becoming aware of distorted beliefs or thoughts before you can reframe or replace them. Wrong beliefs, like apps running in the background, drain energy, even if you're not actively thinking about them. You may not even know they're running. And like your phone or computer, the key to optimization is identifying the running apps and shutting them down. In other words, you can't change what you won't confront, and you can't confront what you don't know is there. Now, let's shift gears here for a minute and go back to our camera metaphor. It's been established that if your attitude is like the camera lens or how you view things, then your beliefs are the firmware, the operating system that interprets what the lens sees. To change how the camera functions, you can't just swap out the lens, you have to update the firmware. So here's the big question: how do you actually update your firmware? To answer this important question, allow me to introduce a principle I've taught for years. It's a three-part process to help update our personal firmware or our belief system. And it goes like this: know what you believe what you know, and act on what you know and believe. Now, on the surface, you might be saying, what does that even mean? Or, that seems kind of simplistic. But it's a lot deeper than it sounds on the surface. Let's break it down. The first step is know what you believe. Before change can happen, we have to pause and examine what's running in the background, those core ideas that quietly operate your belief system. You can't redirect what you haven't recognized. That's why awareness is always the first step. It begins by asking yourself questions to uncover and challenge your existing beliefs. What do I really believe about myself, about others, about my future or my worth? This isn't about judgment. It's about shining light on silent scripts that shape your behavior, often without you even realizing it. These beliefs show up subtly in our own self talk, like, I'm not college material, or I'm just a screw up, I'm a lost cause, I'm not good enough to do that. Naming the beliefs behind these thoughts is how we start reclaiming power. Awareness begins with naming, and naming opens the door to change. For Marcos, awareness began to grow through honest, sometimes difficult conversations with mentors who gently but firmly helped him see himself more clearly. The second step is believe what you know. This has to do with alignment. Awareness alone doesn't create change, it merely opens the door. Real change begins when we choose to realign our beliefs with truth. When we uncover a limiting belief, we have to ask ourselves, is this what I truly believe? If so, we need to be honest with ourselves because it reflects our current perceived truth. From there, we face a decision. Will I continue to believe this way? Or will I begin to change this belief? And just as important, why? Understanding the reason behind that choice is essential because knowing what you believe and believing what you know are deeply intertwined. As Brene Brown reminds us, when we deny the story, it defines us. But when we own the story, we can write a brave new ending. This kind of alignment takes courageous self reflection and often a safe mentor or trusted guide to help uncover the hidden scripts we've lived by. This is where belief begins to shift. When we align with truth, release the limiting story we've carried, and rewrite it with one rooted in possibility and purpose. In Marcos's case, he first struggled to trust the perspectives of his mentors, but over time, he began to align his beliefs with the clearer, more hopeful view they offered. The third step is act on what you know and believe. This is application, and this is the turning point. Belief doesn't transform behavior until it's applied. Knowing truth alone doesn't create change. As Stephen Covey has said, to know and not do is really not to know. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. You can have the brush in one hand and the toothpaste in the other. Each one is designed to clean your teeth, but unless you use them, nothing changes. You might know and believe brushing your teeth daily is important, but if you don't actually do it, you may eventually lose some teeth. And you could have some offensive breath in the process. Truth works the same way. If it's not applied, it won't transform you. Again, this is the application step in the process where belief becomes behavior through repeated intentional action. Each time you act on a new belief, you reinforce it. And over time, application turns belief into habit, and habits shape the life you're building. James Clear puts it this way: every action is a vote for the person you're becoming. That's why application matters. It's how belief becomes behavior and behavior becomes identity. For Marcos, every time he chose to show up for class or accept help, instead of deflecting it with humor, he cast a vote for his new belief. So, when we look back at Marcos's journey, what do we see? We see that he became aware of what he believed. He challenged old beliefs and aligned new beliefs with truth. And he acted on what he came to know repeatedly and with intention. In other words, he didn't just swap the lens, he updated the firmware. And the reality is this: none of this can be done alone. Marcos's belief system began to change because open-minded, caring adults came alongside him. They helped him name his limiting beliefs, challenge their truth, replace them with something healthier, and reinforce those new beliefs with intentional, consistent, and courageous action. And he didn't have to believe he'd become a millionaire or a PhD. Not that either of those were out of the question. He just had to believe in something better and beyond his present limitations and circumstances. Again, as Brené Brown put it, when we own the story, we can write a brave new ending. And that's what Marcos is doing. New beliefs are showing up in new behaviors. New behaviors are turning into new habits. And those new habits are shaping a different lifestyle. That developing lifestyle is going to help Marcos rewrite his brave new ending. And guess what? Marcos is still writing. One final thought here before we close. Success doesn't have to mean fame or wealth or a college degree or a particular career. For Marcos, success meant breaking cycles that held his family back. It meant showing up when it was easier to give up, staying the course when the road got tough, and choosing to live with purpose, on purpose. Success is becoming the fullest expression of who you're meant to be. And the beauty of the journey is you get to decide what that expression looks like. So, how do we change beliefs? We name them, we challenge them, we replace them, and we reinforce the new. And we remind ourselves every step of the way: know what you believe what you know, and act on what you know and believe. Because when you do, just like Marcos, you don't just change what you do, you change who you become. And that, my friends, is the heart of transformation. I want to thank you again for watching Mr. Martinez's Mindset Messages. If you're finding value in these videos, I would be honored if you'd like, subscribe, and share this message with someone who may benefit from it. And let's keep this conversation going. Have you ever replaced a limiting belief with a more life-giving truth? What helped you challenge that belief? And what's the difference now because of it? Drop your story in the comments below. You never know. Your story might be the encouragement someone in our community needs today. Next time, we'll dive into the C in the ABC's framework. Character determines conduct. I hope you'll join me. But until then, much love, much respect, peace.